On the night of April 28, 1950, the sky above the Atlantic Ocean glittered with thousands of stars. It looked like the perfect night for flying. Far below the silent ocean, a large passenger aircraft, Flight ARQ 502, was traveling from New Orleans to Houston. Inside the aircraft were 130 passengers and 12 crew members, most of them relaxed, unaware that their journey would soon become one of the most mysterious survival stories ever told. The aircraft cruised smoothly at around 8,700 feet and nearly 190 miles per hour. In the cockpit, Captain John Douglas and co-pilot Paul Hartman calmly monitored the instruments. Everything appeared normal. The engines hummed steadily, and the flight path showed no signs of danger. But at exactly 8:25 p.m., something strange began to happen. The radio signal connecting the aircraft with air traffic control suddenly started fading. Captain Douglas picked up the microphone and calmly reported a minor technical issue. His voice remained steady, but those words would become the last message anyone would hear from the aircraft. Seconds later, Flight ARQ 502 vanished completely from radar. Air traffic controllers stared at their screens in confusion. The aircraft's last known position was somewhere above a mysterious stretch of ocean that would later gain a haunting reputation, a place some investigators would call the Callisto Triangle. Moments later, inside the aircraft, the situation turned terrifying. Dark storm clouds suddenly surrounded the plane. Lightning ripped through the sky, illuminating the massive wings of the struggling aircraft. Powerful winds began shaking the plane violently. Passengers gripped their seats as turbulence threw the aircraft from side to side. Then the first system failed. The radar stopped working. Seconds later, the compass froze. One by one, the aircraft's electronic systems went dark. The pilots suddenly realized something horrifying. They were flying blind inside a violent storm. For nearly 35 terrifying minutes, the aircraft battled the chaos of the storm. Lightning flashed around them like explosions in the sky. The plane shuddered under powerful gusts of wind. Then suddenly, the storm ended, but the danger had only just begun. Both engines had stopped working. The aircraft was now gliding silently above an endless ocean. The plane was losing altitude, and the dark water below looked closer every second. Then, just as hope seemed to disappear, co-pilot Paul Hartman spotted something in the distance. A small island. Captain Douglas had only seconds to act. He aimed the powerless aircraft toward the jungle-covered land below. What happened next would save 142 lives. The aircraft slammed into the dense jungle with a deafening crash. Massive tree branches snapped like matchsticks as the plane tore through the forest. But the thick trees slowed the fall of the aircraft, acting like a giant net. Against all odds, everyone survived. Shaken and injured, the passengers slowly crawled out of the wreckage. The air smelled of smoke and broken metal, but what they saw around them was even more frightening. Endless jungle, towering trees, strange animal sounds echoing through the darkness. They were stranded on an unknown island, a place that did not appear on any map. The survivors quickly realized their biggest challenge would be survival. There were no clear rivers nearby, and thirst quickly became their first enemy. They survived the first days by collecting rainwater, using pieces of metal and fabric from the wrecked aircraft. Captain Douglas knew panic would destroy the group, so he organized the survivors. Some passengers searched the wreckage for food supplies and medical equipment. Others began building temporary shelters using airplane seats, broken metal panels, and giant jungle leaves. That first night was silent and terrifying. The survivors sat around a small fire, staring into the darkness of the jungle, wondering if the world even knew they were alive. But the island had its own dangers. Soon they discovered that many of the fruits growing in the jungle were poisonous. One passenger accidentally ate a toxic fruit. Within hours, he collapsed and died. It was the first death on the island, and it reminded everyone that survival here would not be easy. But hope came from an unexpected hero. A teenage boy named Elliot Ford used his glasses to focus sunlight onto dry leaves. After hours of trying, a tiny spark appeared. Soon a small flame began to burn, fire. It gave them warmth, protection from wild animals, and the ability to cook food. Meanwhile, an aircraft engineer named Samuel Rentz began working on the broken radio equipment from the wreckage. For hours, he connected wires and repaired damaged circuits. Finally, a weak signal was sent into the sky, but no reply came. Soon the battery died. and the radio fell silent again. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. But no rescue ever came? After 12 days of waiting, 5 desperate teenagers decided to risk everything. Using a small damaged boat from the aircraft's emergency equipment, they sailed into the open ocean, hoping to find help. They disappeared into the horizon, and they were never seen again. The remaining survivors slowly accepted the reality that they might never leave the island. So they adapted. They learned how to hunt animals using spears made from airplane metal. They built traps for wild pigs. They crafted tools from stone and debris. They even carved huge SOS letters into the beach, hoping that one day a passing plane might notice them. Months turned into years. Children were born on the island. These children had never seen cities, cars, electricity, or modern life. For them, the jungle was their entire world. But survival came with a price. As resources slowly began to disappear, tensions grew between the survivors. 2 groups formed. One group believed they must continue trying to escape the island. The other believed the island had become their permanent home. Then one day, while exploring deep caves on the island, a small group discovered something terrifying. A human skeleton. Beside it lay a rusted piece of aircraft metal. It meant one chilling thing. They were not the first people to become trapped on this island, and those before them had never escaped. 7 years passed. Disease, hunger, and exhaustion slowly reduced the group. Only 82 survivors remained. Then disaster struck again. A massive cyclone swept across the island, destroying shelters, crops, and supplies. The survivors barely survived the storm. As if that was not enough, weeks later a violent earthquake shook the island. Trees collapsed, cliffs cracked, and deep within the jungle, the wreckage of the aircraft shifted for the first time in years. When engineer Samuel Rentz inspected the damaged plane again, he noticed something incredible. Several wires that had been buried under metal debris were now exposed. At that exact time, scientists later reported that a rare solar storm had disturbed Earth's magnetic field. The strange combination reconnected parts of the aircraft's damaged radio system. For the first time in 9 years, the radio produced a faint crackling sound. Samuel's hands trembled as he connected the wires. Then he spoke into the microphone. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Flight ARQ 502. If anyone can hear us, we are alive. We have been stranded on this island for 9 years. Thousands of miles away in New Orleans, air traffic controllers froze in shock. The aircraft they believed lost forever was calling for help. Within hours, a massive rescue operation began. Back on the island, the survivors built giant fires on the beach, sending smoke high into the sky. Then one morning, someone spotted a small shape on the horizon. Ship, a United States Navy rescue vessel. After 9 long years of survival, suffering, and hope, the survivors were finally rescued. Their return shocked the world. People who had been declared dead nearly a decade earlier were suddenly alive again. Their story became a symbol of human courage and determination, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope can keep people alive.